Okay, so as I have stated previously, the 8th Circle of Hell has to deal with the fraudulent, those that committed some type of fraud throughout their days. And this is also probably the most complicated Circle of Hell. I don't know why, in particular, this one has to have 10 separate levels to it. It's pretty much its own separate space. That's just one thing that, like, like Hell in general has 9 circles, and the 8th one has 10. So, right there, your priorities are a little bit askew. I don't know. So, a couple of things for this one right now. I'm actually having, like, somebody, let me tell you his name. It was Kiyoshiro Mibu. He sent me a, or they sent me, I'm not sure if it's a male or a female. They sent me a, complete listing of all the different, sections of the 8th circle, who's punished, why are they punished, like, so I'm going to have this open. So in this video I'm probably going to spend more time looking at the computer screen, just because, like in the previous ones, I had a pretty basic understanding of who gets punished where, but the 8th circle just has so many levels, I really didn't look into it that much. But it is very interesting. So before we get into the actual circle itself, let me just stop for a little bit and talk about something I talked about at the end of the last video, which was the method that Dante and Virgil need to use to go down, because like I said, from this point, up until this point, they've basically gotten down to each ledge through like a series of like ledges or staircases. So, you know, from level 6 to level 7, they like climb down. But however, from level 7 to 8 and 8 to 9, there's no easy way down. There's no staircase, there's no, you know, there's no trail, there's nothing. It's just a straight cliff, like sheer rock. So, what they did is they had the help of this kind of chimera being called Gairon, who was he had a human head, a beast body like a lion, and he had like a reptile lizard type tail. And he is actually the guardian of this circle, of the 8th Circle of Hell, and he actually is like an embodiment of fraud in itself, where he has the face of a very honest man, of like a regular human being. Kind of looks like Santa Claus, if I do say so myself. And the rest of his body is kind of like fraudulent of that. It's like it's bestial. It's very violent. It's warped and twisted and wrong, and it isn't something that should exist. And we'll get into that later on. At the very bottom of the 8th Circle, we'll get to other figures that have to represent fraudulent in terms of just like everything. So okay, so let's finally get into this. I'm going to give you a very basic layout of how this circle works. It's going to be a little bit confusing, because I admit even when I read it the first time I was a little confused. But basically, they're pretty much at the bottom of hell now. They're pretty much at the bottom of hell. And basically they're at the floor. And if the floor of hell was like a massive circle, then each section of the 8th circle is a different ditch. So, you know, the first circle would be the longest ditch, would be the biggest, because it goes like the entire length, and then the second circle is a little bit more inward, third circle is a little bit more inward, and these ditches just keep getting more smaller and as they go more into the center of the circle. And at the very center of the circle, there's a hole that goes down into the 9th circle. So, you know, I threw a map up there when all that's going on. I hope that kind of makes sense. And the perspective that Dante and Virgil are having is they're actually a bridge. There's a bridge that goes over every single ditch. So basically what happens is that Virgil and Dante are walking on this bridge in just a straight path, and they're looking down and they're watching all the sinners in this one ditch, and then they walk a little bit more forward and they look at this other ditch, and they're not actually going down and witnessing it like in the other levels. They're just kind of like observing people from a higher perspective, which is probably also symbolic of something, them staring down at the sinners from a higher perspective. You could probably figure out something like symbolic of that in religious mythology. Okay, so finally getting to the first ditch, the first Bolgia. They're called Bolgias. Okay, so the first ditch, or the first Bolgia, is for the Panderers and the Seducers. So, you know, the next time you're at the office Christmas party and you're thinking about seducing Susan, the office accountant, to go home with you, maybe you should probably rethink this, because you really don't want to end up in the 8th Circle of Hell. And so how it works, and because this is the largest of the Bolgias, it makes more sense. We have the Panderers in one line, that's like in a straight line that's constantly walking in one direction across the Bolgia, and then we have the Seducers, which are in the like an opposite line, that are walking the opposite direction. So kind of like this, you know, in like opposite directions. And while they're walking in these opposite directions, they're constantly being whipped at by demons. And the deal is here is that Panderers and the Seducers, they use the passions of others to drive them to do their bidding. So they're being driven by demons, you know, like marching and whipping. So it's kind of like It's kind of similar to the vestibule of hell, where the punishment is like eternal, like an eternity of running or walking. Except in this occasion, instead of being chased by like wasps and locusts, they're being whipped at by demons. Which honestly, I would still bear a little bit more better on the hierarchy than being chased by bugs, because I just hate any kind of stinging insects. So if someone came up to me and was like, would you rather be chased by wasps for all eternity, or would you rather be whipped by demons for all eternity? I'm like, gotta go with the demons. Astroth, bring it on. Gotta do it. Sorry. So Dante encounters Jason in this level of hell, and no, it is not Jason Voorhees from Friday the 13th, although, actually no, he would only be sent to the 7th circle because, I mean, he really just committed murder. I mean, over 200 acts of murder, but he only gets sent to the 7th circle. Alright, you're good. Now, these are for the real troublesome people of society, those who were seducers. And that messed up to a degree. I mean, I have to disagree with a few of this idea here. I mean, I know they're going more off a hierarchy, like, you know, like you're betraying and you're fraudulent to your fellow man. That's a worse crime than committing murder, but still, just a few of these I have to disagree with. Now, this is probably referring to the Jason from Jason the Argonauts, Jason the Golden Fleece from the Odyssey, to which he actually seduced Hypsipyle and abandoned her with child. So that was kind of a dick move, if I have to say so myself. Way to go, Jason. Alright, next up is Bogia 2. Here are the Flatterers. And here's the one that I'm a little bit like, this is like a prime example of a crime that shouldn't really be, you know, this low on the list. 8th circle, second ditch of hell. You're a flatterer. So, you exploited other people like you did with the panderers, except you actually did it with your words, your flattery, your words. So, because of this, you have to soak eternity in human excrement. Yes, we finally got to the point in hell that I've mentioned like 3 times where you basically spend the rest of eternity soaking in shit. Yeah. Okay, and basically the deal is here, you know, you soak in the disgusting excrement, like, because your words produced, like, you basically were bullshitting people, so guess where you get to spend time in. And I never understood, like, okay, you're a flatterer. Okay, I can understand that. You can kind of exploit people that way. He's like, hey, wow, that's a really good jacket you have there, man. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Hey, can you help me out with, okay, you might be exploiting people like that, but you don't deserve 8th circle of hell, drowning in shit for all eternity. My God, you had to be like, I mean, unless you're like extremely exploitative, but anything. Who is in this level? Alessandro Etermina of Lucca and Thias are seen here. Okay, yeah, those people must have been really freaking good at flattery. They must have had like the most golden of tongues ever. Okay, so now on to Bogia 3, the Simoniacs, which I actually had to look up to see what a Simoniac was. A Simoniac is those who paid for sacraments or paid to get higher up in the church. So that's like essentially like, you know, throwing a couple bucks your way. It's like, hey, can I be the Pope? Yeah. Okay, so their punishment, this one's a little bit grisly. This punishment's pretty bad. It's you're put head first into holes in rocks. So, you know, there's at the bottom of the ditch, you know, there's rocks. And I remember when I first read the Divine Comedy, there was actually a layout diagram for this. Well, anyway, there's rocks on the ground at the bottom of the ditch with your, like, there's like a small hole in them, and there's a fire inside, and basically what you do is you put your head in first, so you're kind of upside down, and there's flames burning on the soles of your feet, so it's kind of like a reverse baptism, in a sense, except with fire instead of with, you know, water, obviously. So it's like kind of like a reverse baptism, and depending on how bad your sin was, depends on how hot the flame burns. So depending on the guilt of the sinner, we actually see a pope here. We actually see a couple popes. Actually, we see Pope Boniface the VIII and Pope Clement the Fifth. Yeah, so these are all, you know, those who like used money to try to get higher up in the church, and they didn't really deserve their position. So I can at least understand why these people would be punished. That's like the flatterers, not so much. The panderers, okay, maybe a little bit, but you know, not this. So now on to Bogia 4. And for those of you who like Harry Potter, it's a great series of books. You know, he fought his way, learned the mastery of wizardry from all of his excellent teachers. He defeated the Dark Lord of Voldemort. But he was a sorcerer and therefore committed fraud. So he goes to Bogia number 4, wherein the fact that he will also join the powers of the astrologers and the false prophets and have their head twisted around on their bodies backwards. Yeah, have that picture in your mind. Harry Potter in the 4th Bogia of Hell, his head twisted on backwards and forced to walk back for all eternity. So it's kind of like you thought you could use your powers to look forward, like fortune tellers, for example. They believe like, oh, you can use your powers to look forward. Okay, well, for the rest of eternity, you can't look forward. For the rest of eternity, you won't be able to know where you're going. So head twisted on backwards and walking forward, so you don't know where you're going, and suffering an eternity of bumping into people and tripping over your 2 feet. Sorry, Harry! You might have defeated Voldemort, but, yeah, you committed a major sin there, man. Alright, now on to Bogia 5. Okay. The 5th Bogia is for the beraters or the corrupt politicians of their day. So, I can imagine quite a few people in our day that would probably end up in the 5th Bogia, the 8th Circle of Hell. And their punishment is they are submerged in a lake of boiling pitch, which basically is like, I guess, some kind of very dark liquid, or maybe the entire area is like a pitch dark liquid, and they're just sinking in this, and it has to be boiling, because it wouldn't be hell if stuff wasn't on fire and boiling, right? So they get immersed in this, which represents their dark secrets that they had throughout their lives. Right, Dante actually stays really onto this one. He devotes like several cantos, several verses of the poem onto these the people that committed like these crimes of berating people. But whatever. Moving on, because if I could stay on the 5th one, but we'd be here for a while. Next is Bogia 6, which is the hypocrites. So once again, it's an issue like everyone. It's like, okay, everyone flatters people at times. Everyone even would probably be pandering or a seducer at certain points. I guess these are the people that like their lives were full of it. Like this is what they were their entire lives. If when these people die, the one word that you could use to sum them up perfectly is hypocrites, flatterer, panderer, because otherwise we're all doomed, guys. We're done, okay? We're gonna get, boiling lake of darkness, heads twisted on backwards, whipped by demons. So, you better start being good, let me tell you. So, their lives were full of falsity. They were hypocrites, so they would say something, but they, go back on their words and mean nothing else. So their words were completely full of falsities, and they didn't mean much. So, because of that, they will now wear these kind of like monk robes, like that might not, I'm getting there. They wear these like really heavy, like gilded monk robes, but they're like insanely heavy. I think they might even have like some kind of like quality to them, like made of metal or something. So you're basically spent the rest of your life bent down and like walking like you're a monk at prayer, essentially. So that's your punishment, wearing like a 2-ton robe and walking around with your head bowed and looking like you're a bunch of monks walking in line. So yeah, that seems very creative. Bogia 7. Now I believe this is the one Bogia where the bridge that Dante and Virgil are crossing is broken. I believe that's like there's like a cave-in or something, and the bridge has collapsed, and that's because they mention this throughout. I don't think I've mentioned this that much in the video, but throughout the entire their pilgrimage through hell, they've made such a big deal about the time of day. See, the Bogia, the whole Divine Comedy, it starts off with Dante and the Dark Wood. It starts off on, I think, Good Friday. And throughout his entire pilgrimage through hell, purgatory, and heaven, they keep referencing the date. They keep referencing the time of the date it is, and that makes a big deal. So, the big deal here is that whenever Christ died, and Christ died, I believe, or it was either when Christ died or when he was resurrected, either or, one of those two. Probably when he was being resurrected, because Good Friday's, Easter. So, whenever Christ was resurrected, that basically shook all of hell, like literally shook it like a giant earthquake. And due to this giant earthquake, the 5th circle, the 7th Bogia bridge collapsed. And this is the one that is devoted to the thieves. Now, finally, you're thinking like, okay, finally, thievery is probably like the one major sin we haven't really discussed yet. I mean, we talked about murder, we talked about, full of wrath or anger, we talked about being like an atheist or heretic. Pretty much thievery is like one of the common sins you would think you get sent to hell for that we haven't discussed yet. So, 7th Bogia is for the thieves, and what they get is and what the So 7th Bogia is the 7th Bogia is where the 7th Bogia is full of thieves. So 7th Bogia is reserved for the thieves, and this is the one that actually plays to the whole, you know, you die in hell and then you regenerate and then you get tortured again. This one is the one that plays to this the most. And it's so sick and it's so scary, but it's so freaking brilliant. Okay. They get bitten by serpents, bitten by snakes, but these aren't regular snakes where you get bit and you get poisoned. These are snakes where you get bit and you combust. They bite you and they blow up. Not yet, though, but because you're in hell, whenever most of your body has been blown to smithereens, reforms itself and gets bit again and again and again by the equivalent of king cobras that are filled with C4. That is clever. I have to give you that much. There's a bunch of people in this one because, you know, thieves is once again, it's a very common sin. So I'm not going to get all those. Okay, next is the 8th Bogia, which is the fraudulent counselors. Those who basically counseled others and tried to teach them, you know, what's right to do, what's like the right path you should take, except they were in themselves filled with fraud, so therefore they have no right giving advice, pretty much. They get burned forever with a single eternal flame. So, you know, at least they're very, they're fair with the flame. I mean, we have, you know, boiling lava, boiling blood, boiling shit, boiling dark pitch, whatever that was. You know, who else got set on fire? Like the snakes that combust, getting your feet burned. At least this is just like one solid flame. Like, you know, like the pilot light on your oven. I don't even know if ovens still have pilot lights, but, you know, if your oven has like a pilot light, it's just like a single solid flame, like in a butane lighter. Yeah, that is basically you inside of that little tiny fire. I guess that burns with the ferocity depending on your sin. Ulysses is here. Ulysses is here. And so is Diomedes. Next is the 9th Bogia, which is the Sours of Scandal and the Schism. Once again, this is one that I really like, just how sick and demented it is. Basically because, you know, schisms, so like, you know, those who are divided, those who are split between, you know, themselves and stuff, and those who, you know, anything that's like they're split and they're divided on things. So because of that, they get cut up by demons for the rest of eternity with swords. So imagine that. We have a ditch in the ground where a bunch of people are literally running around screaming, probably in pure agony, as these demons with like all these like long swords just jump down and just start hacking the shit out of these people like a freaking lawnmower. And then they get all cut up and split into like 15 million pieces, and then they all get like mashed up together again like jelly back into a human body, and the demons just keep hacking you down again. So, you know, that fits the description. This is what I'm talking about. This is what I'm thinking of when I think of eternity in hell, getting sliced up into 1,000 pieces by freaking demons. So finally, we have come to the 10th Bogia of the 8th Circle of Hell. Could they have made this easy? No. The 10th Bogia of the 8th Circle of Hell is also divided into 5 more sections. Come on, Dante! Come on! Okay. Okay, whatever. Alright, so this is... I'm just gonna breeze through this, okay? I'm not even really gonna go in... I'll go into detail on the punishment, but it's basically the same punishment for each time. So, the 10th Bogia is for those who falsify things using various means. So, the first sub-ditch, I guess, would be those who falsified metals. The second one is those who falsified persons. Third is falsified of coins. Falsified of words is number 4. And finally, the falsified, like the ultimate falsifiers are the giants. But I'll get to those, that's like a separate section. Okay, so essentially the first 4, metals, persons, coins, and words, you can probably figure out, you know, the falsify, you can falsify through money, falsify through metals, stuff like that. They get inflicted with diseases depending on which one they did. It doesn't go into great detail exactly which disease you get depending on what you did, but you basically, you know, committed a sin of falsifying, like a counterfeit would be coins, for example. Falsifying words, you know, probably telling lies. Falsifying persons, not really sure what that would entail. Falsifying metals, I can probably imagine falsifying metals would be like maybe carving deity, like making sculptures maybe that are like kind of like the second commandment, like thou shalt not commit any graven images. Maybe that has something to do with it, I'm not sure. But they get inflicted with diseases. Now, the last section of the 8th circle is home to the giants. So Dante and Virgil, they arrive at the opening, this giant massive hole that just goes straight down, pitch dark at the bottom, can't see where it leads, and this leads to the 9th circle of hell, or Cocytus. It's Cocytus because it's basically a giant frozen lake down there. So how they get down is basically surrounding this, it's basically a well, like a well shape. So surrounding this well are the giants, and these giants include Nimrod, which I like, because like that's where you get the that's how I found out the expression Nimrod through the Divine Comedy, so thanks, Aligari. So there's basically a bunch of giants here, which are basically the ultimate representation of the fraudulent. So you're basically committing fraud on history, fraud on biblical events, because the giants are down here, and the giants are more related to like Roman mythology. So the one giant, I believe it is, let me just check here for a second, the one giant, I believe his name is Enitus. He is the only giant that is not bound by chains. All of them are like bound on the ground, like sitting in a sitting stance, and they're all bound by massive chains. Enitus is the only one who is not. So he basically picks up Dante and Virgil, and he lowers them slowly into the 9th circle of hell, Cocytus, the frozen lake, down in the well. And I can only imagine that's kind of like this is probably one of the parts of the book that was really sad. Like I can actually feel the sadness, because at this point, Dante and Virgil have seen a lot of shit. They've seen a lot, quite literally, they've seen a lot of messed up stuff in hell, and they finally get to the point where it's like the giants, they're not really being tortured, they're not really being harmed in any way. It's more of just like a sadness point where it's just like they're sitting there and they're very sullen, they're just explaining how life really works, and that's all that kind of stuff, and just like there's one path essentially, and it's so rare apparently to get to not end up in hell. Like I said, Dante would probably have ended up in hell if he didn't. So it's very sad, it's very sullen, and that last image with just like, you know, he picks them up and he just like kind of lowers them down to see like the whole scope of everything. So that was the 8th circle of hell. Like I said, freaking long, right? So finally, we're going to get into the last circle, the 9th circle, Cocytus, in the next video. We're going to meet Satan. We're going to see what the ultimate sin is you can commit in hell. We're going to see the ultimate punishment for the ultimate sin in hell. And then we're finally going to relate on how we're going to end the Inferno and how Dante and Virgil continue on the path to purgatory. So stay tuned. Part 5 up next, guys. See ya.